Hello everyone, it's Mr. Ryder. Hope you're all well and keeping well. I'm going to be doing a lesson for you today looking at Brownfield and Greenfield land. Now some of you have looked at this before within your lessons, some of you might not have done that yet. Either way, it's going to be different tasks, so it's a really good revision for those of you that have done it, and also it'll be great for those of you who are just being introduced to Brownfield and Greenfield land. Now what I'd like you to do first of all, like every lesson, it's really important to start with a recap to make sure that we're retaining the information that we're learning and going back and putting it into our long-term memory. So could you go through those questions please and answer them into your exercise books. Right then, the answers. Now, the first few lessons that you did over the past couple of weeks with Miss Shaw were on deprivation. So that's the idea of, number one, a lack of access to good quality services. Well, number two, what do we mean by services? We mean things like schools, healthcare, skills, transport, housing, jobs. Now, it's worth saying we're in a HIC, we're in a wealthy country. What we're not saying is that these areas don't have schools or don't have hospitals or medical clinics and those sorts of things, or doctors. What we're saying of is there's either not enough of them or they're underperforming or poor quality. Okay, people might live, a few miles away from the nearest doctor. They might be attending a school that is in special measures or a very poor school. Number three, what is missing from the from the cycle of deprivation on the right? Well, we looked at the cycle of deprivation before. You did some annotated diagrams of them, I think. We start off with poverty at the top. That means that people can't afford to improve their housing, so poor living conditions. That leads to ill health, stress, pain. Well, what that leads to is time off education or poor quality education. That's what's missing. And if they've got poor quality education, then people are getting poor skills and qualifications. Now that leads back into poverty again. So it's really hard to break from this cycle of poverty. And many areas, once they are deprived, they'll be stuck in that cycle of deprivation for a long time. Number four, what does dereliction mean? It means being run down or abandoned. You did that lesson, I think, with Mr. Hurst. Number five, give one problem of dereliction. Well, dereliction can cause antisocial behaviour in old mills. You think about Dale Mill in Milnrow, for example. It's also visual pollution. It doesn't look particularly great. It doesn't give people a particularly great impression of that area. So if you think again about Dale Mill, people might come through Milnrow and see that abandoned mill and think, it's maybe not a particularly nice area. Obviously, we know that's different. We know that parts of Milnrow are very, very nice. Also, it can be dangerous. It can attract crime, like I said, antisocial behaviour, injuries. Buildings might fall over or collapse. The last one, give an environmental challenge of sending waste to landfill. Well, there's quite a few. So we bury a lot of our waste that isn't recycled. That can, when rainwater seeps through that land, it can then cause pollution of the groundwater in the area around. That pollution can end up in rivers. It also causes air pollution, particularly methane gases that are released, as well as visual pollution. Not many people like to live or be near to a landfill. So today we're looking at the environmental challenges in Manchester, and we've looked at some already. With Mr. Hirsch, you looked at dereliction and the challenge of waste disposal. Today we're going to look at brownfield and greenfield land. Now they're two important terms that we're going to define in a second, but your title is there, environmental challenges, brownfield, greenfield land. And today we're going to explore what's the impact of building on brownfield and greenfield land, what's the social, economic, environmental challenges of those different areas. Now, first of all, it's an environmental challenge as Manchester needs to build more new homes. That's a key thing. The UK does not build enough new homes. That's why a lot of people struggle to get on the property ladder, because homes are really expensive because there's not enough of them. Now, if you look at a couple of those headlines there, Manchester dominates population growth in England and Wales. Manchester heading for a population boom over the next decade. Now, if you look at the graph on the left-hand side and you look at the blue line at the top, Manchester's line, you can see from 2000 to 2001 is increasing. We're in that period of regeneration. People are moving back into the city centre now. We've got to build places for these people to live, okay? Now, if you think about Manchester, you can see we've got Manchester and the boroughs of Manchester and some of the key towns on there, okay? I've put Milnrow in a sort of red area. They're planning on building extra homes around Milnrow to keep up with this demand, because we need the extra homes for the people that are moving into Greater Manchester. Now, Manchester is surrounded by a green belt. That's basically land that legally you're not allowed to build on. But because of population pressure, we are starting to build on Greenbelt land, including the land around Milnrow and Rochdale. Some of that has been allocated to new housing. Now that would be greenfield land because that's land that hasn't been built on before. We do have other options though. What we could do is build on brownfield land that has already been built on before and might have lots of derelict houses, factories or pubs or whatever on. So just to give you a bit of an idea about why we're having to do this, well, the UK is, why this is a challenge, sorry. The UK is the fourth most densely populated country in the EU. Obviously, we're not in the EU now, okay? But we are still a very, very densely populated country, okay? The UK's population is growing. We're likely to hit 75 million by 2030. Now, much of the land in the UK is protected by green belts, but there are 1,200 brownfield sites in Manchester. That's land that has been built on before that we could possibly use for housing. That's just a reminder, that's just showing you the UK's green belt. We've got London in the south there, that giant cluster, and you've got Manchester, Liverpool and Leeds. There's a lot of green belt there to stop the cities from merging into each other. Now, these are two definitions that you need to get down. Brownfield land which has previously been built on. For example, it might be where an old factory is situated. Most of that is usually in the inner city, and you can see from that picture there that there's a clue that that land's been built on before. It's got lots of concrete here. Okay, you can see the old buildings in the background. That's brownfield land, it's been built on before. We also have greenfield land, which is land that hasn't been built on, usually on the edges of cities, and you can see this is a lovely patch of greenfield land there on which we could build new homes. Can you get those definitions down into your exercise books? Now, what we've got to do is we've got to understand the positives and the negatives of building on brownfield land, okay? What I'd like you to do, please, is you're going to do a table into your exercise book. It needs to be at least half a page, if not a full page, a big table, please, because you've got to try and fit a lot of information into it. Now, you're going to have brownfield on one side, greenfield on the other. Now, on the left-hand side, I've got about 15 bullet points. I'd like you to have a look through, read through them, and decide, first of all, are they about brownfield land or are they about greenfield land? I want you to write the bullet points into the correct part of the table. You might want to add a little picture to help you remember as well. What you're then going to do, once you've done that, is you need to get two colours and you need to shade in whether they are a positive of brownfield land or a negative of brownfield land, or a positive of greenfield, negative of greenfield. So one colour for positives, one colour for negatives. So if we do the first one together, the first one says it improves the urban fabric, the density of the city, which might mean that more people come to this part of the city. Now that's about brownfield land. All these patchy bits of land that have been built on before but have got nothing on, don't look very attractive. But if we build on them, it's going to increase the urban fabric. It's going to make the city look nicer. Okay, people don't want to see these empty abandoned lots in the middle of cities. So I'm going to put that into my brownfield box and then I'm going to shade that in, probably green because it's an advantage. Okay, I'd like you to do that for the other ones there. All right, that's the main task for today. It'll probably take you most of your time. If you finish it, send some pictures. I'm sure your teachers would love to see. I certainly would for my class. There's just some answers there just to help you. Okay, some things that we've spoken a bit about before. Now, the last thing I'd like you to do is complete the Google Classroom quiz before marking this task as complete. So, complete the Google quiz and then you are done for today. Lovely to speak to you, Year 10. I'm hoping that I'll get to speak to you soon.